So today is the 2nd of February 2020, and I just want to share some thoughts on some things I've been listening to and just connecting the dots. So the topic I'm thinking about is still the topic of salvation. So salvation is something that Christians claim as that I have been saved, and I've got a day and date, which I can say that was my date of my rebirth. Now, in a sense, that's accurate, that's correct. But salvation is not as simple as that. Salvation is based on the storyline of Israel leaving Egypt. So when you read the story about the Passover lamb, first of all, they applied the blood to the outside of the doorpost, and that was for Yahweh to see. On the inside of the house, they had the lamb that was fully roasted. It was the elevation offering, burnt offering. So anything that was not eaten had to be burnt. And that shows us two things. First of all, the blood on the outside provide a covering or a protection, if you like. And on the inside, they had access to the lamb, which provide the strength for them to leave. So moving out of the house after the angel of death passed, they carried the lamb within themselves. So you can then relate that and ask the questions that says, now where is Yeshua today? Now he is inside of us, just like the lamb was inside of them when they left. Now in that context, reading the scripture, it says that they were saved from Egypt. They were saved from bondage. They were saved from Pharaoh and the oppression, being slaves in the land of Egypt. Now Egypt is a word Mitzrayim that means bondage and associated with sin. So sin and bondage is basically what we are saved from. We are redeemed from that. Now the redemption coming with a transaction. We have to exchange money or something of value in order to purchase a possession. So in saying that, the day you were redeemed, you made that decision and you acknowledge that with through prayer and acknowledge that giving your heart to Yeshua and to Yahweh, that is the day that you are no longer your own property. You don't belong to yourself anymore. You belong to Yahweh. And that's something that people tend to forget. You are no longer in charge of your own life. Yahweh is in charge of your life. You need to listen to Him, follow Him, and do what He asks. Because you are on a journey. And that journey started the day you left your spiritual Egypt. So in saying that is, in the context of salvation, is that we are saved from Egypt. So that is the day you made the decision. And prior to that was the work that Yeshua did. And prior to that was the symbolism of the actual Passover that happened when physical Israel left Egypt. So all of those things associated with Egypt, and they sit within a timeline. So we've got past tense, the symbolism. Then we still have past tense, which is the actual fulfillment of that through Yeshua, what He did on the cross. And then you have your past tense, your BC days where you crossed over, becoming a child of the King. And then you start walking. And that's 3 past tense events that all coincide to that process and the activation of that process. And now you traveling to the mountain, through the wilderness, on your way to the promised land is the picture of what salvation is. Because the other side of the coin is that you are saved for a future application. You are saved into another place. You are saved from one place and you are saved into another place, which we can call the promised land, the land of Canaan, the restored Garden of Eden, or the new heavens and the new earth. So all of those things are now in context of past tense, your current present state, which is working your salvation with fear and trembling, and the future tense of salvation is reaching the destination. And Paul puts it in the context of running a race, reaching the finishing line. The finishing line is crossing the Jordan, which is judgment, entering the promised land, which has to do with the new Jerusalem coming down, the new kingdom, new heavens, new earth, Yahweh dwelling with his people again. So all of that is basically what salvation is. It's a very broader, a much broader idea than just your date, which you made the decision and you don't really know what it's all about. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is relating to the sacrificial system. Now the sacrifices are called korban. That's where the word carbon comes from, because it has to do with fire, and the translation from something that is physical into something that is spiritual. Now the sacrifices, or the animals, or whatever they brought as a sacrifice, were called a gift that you bring to Yahweh. And then that gift was sacrificed. And the other meaning of korban means to draw near. Now you draw near to Yahweh if there's a removal, or if you remove the separation between you and him. So every time you bring a gift, which is a part of your life that needs to be sorted out with the help of his Spirit, you move a little bit closer. Because the purpose of Yeshua is to save us from sin, to save us from Mitzrayim and the bondage of sin. And he only could have done that through his work, and then giving his gift, the gift from the Father, which is his Spirit, that you now receive, where his commandments are written in your heart, and you receive the new nature. And that new nature is prone to doing what Yahweh wants. But now you have this conflict inside of yourself, and Paul also wrote about that. He said, the things I don't want to do, I do. The things that I do want to do, I don't. It's that inward struggle between these two, the old man and the new man. And they will always be present. Now the misconception that believers have today is, they believe first of all, when I'm born again, I pray the prayer, I am now fully mature, and there's no issue there. I don't have to worry about anything. But it is a process of submitting every single part of your life, and that is what the wilderness spirit is about. It's about walking in this life, it's about falling, it's about standing up again, it's about repentance, it's about surrender. And that will cleanse that little part of your life, and then another part is removed and you move one step closer to Yahweh. So the end goal is to meet him face to face. The end goal is to have that intimate relationship with him. The end goal is to stand in his presence. And that's where this process, which is called holiness, is so important. Holiness means the absence of sin, because you are like him. And he said, be holy for I am holy. So that process is elevating our level of holiness and removing the little separations of sin, allowing us to draw closer to him, which is our korban process, which is our process of drawing near. And the gift is that area of your life that you put on the altar, that he helped you to deal with, so you can move closer and closer. So that's just a little bit on the conclusion of the topic of salvation, just to put it in context. The other thing that we need to remember is, when you're born again, you are born as an infant. As an infant, you're totally dependent upon the mother's milk. Now that is connected to El Shaddai, which I discussed previously. Sat means breast, and dai means to have enough, or to have anything that you need um, that is sufficient for your sustenance, nourishment, as well as your healing. And Yahweh revealed himself, and this is where Yahweh revealed his name as YHVH, or Yahweh, to Moses. He said previously, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he revealed himself as El Shaddai. So that is a immature state. But for you, moving forward, I will reveal myself as YHVH to the people. Now what we see in this example is that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were individuals. With Moses, that was passed on to 12 tribes, plus a mixed multitude. So the nation of Israel was set in motion. And that is a more mature level, and that is depicted by the revelation of Yahweh's name. So as you are born again, you know Yahweh is El Shaddai. As you grow into maturity, you will learn to know him as YHVH. Now what does that mean? Now YHVH represent what is in the Ark of the Covenant. It's the pot of manna, that's the Yod, the rod of Aaron, that's the Vav, and the two hays are the two tablets. Now those are the things that you get access to through the Korban and the process of the feast of Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is about dealing with the sins of the nation. So that's the more mature state if you think about an individual grew into a nation. Now that will extend further into another level of maturity where that nation will grow into nations, reaching more than one nation through the nation which are called the priesthood. So Israel is similar to the priesthood to the nation, represent the priesthood to the nation, similar to the Levites representing the priesthood to Israel. They've got a certain function to facilitate Yahweh's word. Now the word Levi means to interweave. If you look at the tapestry, when you interweave, you've got horizontal threads and vertical threads. And if you weave them together, you get a picture. Now the Levites had to connect with Yahweh to get the vertical strings, and then they had to connect with people in real life, because the majority of them live among the tribes, and they had to connect to the people in order to interweave Yahweh with the people, and that presented a beautiful picture on the tapestry that they could teach the people with. So that is our job as mature believers, part of Israel, growing into reaching the nations, to present Yahweh, connecting with his word vertically, and then connecting with people. So it's not wrong to mix with people in the world, but you still need your core fellowship, core believers that you meet with in order to have that solid foundation and the help and support that you need reaching out to others. So that is the future revelation of YHVH to a broader audience. But in saying that, you should talk about us losing our first love. Now the first love, the purest form of first love, is seen between an infant and his or her mother. That is the intimate initial relationship of dependency that exists right after birth, where the baby is so dependent upon the mother and the mother looking after the baby, and that ensured the existence of that baby. If that relationship was not there, the baby would die. And that's the first love relationship Yahweh wants to take us back to. When we look at Abraham, he had the El Shaddai revelation. He had the first love revelation, and he was the one who believed and followed Yahweh, and it was accounted to him as righteousness. So his righteousness was based on his first love relationship with Yahweh, that full dependency. And that existed within Isaac and Jacob as well. So we need to learn from that And we being part of Israel, the people who have the revelation of YHVH, including His Word, because we now sit on the time frame on the other side of the first coming of Yeshua. We've got the full revelation of YHVH, of the 2 tablets. That is actually a person, which is Yeshua. And the Yod is His Spirit. So we've got the fullness of that. And that little Vav in the middle between the 2 tablets, that is you. The Vav represents man. And you are part of carrying the name. You are the one carrying the 2 tablets and having the manna, the supernatural food. And you now have the ability to share the truth, to share the manna, the supernatural word, which comes from the revelation of the Spirit, walking through this life. And you are now just like Moses, just like Aaron, Abraham having the first love relationship, and Moses having the YHVH relationship. And with those 2 names, or understanding of what his character means in that regard, you now carry that and have the ability to go to the next mature level, which is reaching the nations. So that's just something interesting that I thought about this morning, connecting a few dots, listening to some teachings. So I hope you have a lovely day. Shalom.